Members were formed a quorum, and it's also the appointed time for our meeting with only one item on the agenda, and that is difficulties encountered by ethnic minorities in gaining access to housing and healthcare services, and views on services provided by support service centers and ethnic minorities. The administration will join us at this session, and there are 23 deputations. Can we invite the administration and deputations to come in now?
I'll take
the opportunity to introduce representatives from the administration to us. We have Ms. Leung Ka-Yew, PS for Food and Health, and 3 representatives from the HA, Dr. Zhang Chi-Feng, Mr. Lee Hang-Si, and Mr. Lui Pui-Yi. From the Director of Health, we have Dr. Mac Wai Lai, and from the Housing Department we'll have Mrs. Ho Lok So Fan and Ms. Choi Kit Wen, and from the HAD, Mr. Yam Hung Hua, and also HAD, Mr. Zhang Guan Yan. While deputations are coming in, may I explain to members that we have an earpiece and also a PA system to facilitate your participation in the meeting. We have channel 0 for the floor, channel 1 Cantonese, channel 2 English, and channel 3 Putonghua. For deputations that have yet to put in a submission, feel free to do so after the meeting. May I remind you that submissions from deputations today are not protected by the Legislative Powers and Privileges Ordinance, that is, you are liable for your own speech. And may I remind you to our security measures. You have received a guide in the invitation letter to you, and if need be, you can approach our staff for a copy. If we're all ready, I will give the floor to our guests to speak. First, we have Mr. Yu Tak-po from the Civic Party. Good afternoon, Chairman. I'm Yu Tak-po, and also a member of the Working Group on Ethnic Minorities under the Yau Chi Mang District Council. Many ethnic minority groups or EM groups have expressed difficulties faced in gaining access to housing and healthcare services due to the language barrier. Many EMs do not understand English, not to mention Cantonese. They don't know how to gain access to information on application for PRH, the qualifications, and the procedures. It's also hard for them to obtain booking for OPD or SOPD services. Well, even if they are sick, when they seek help at a public hospital, they encounter difficulties because of the language barrier. Again, for instance, they may not know how to use English or Cantonese to accurately reflect their symptoms to the doctor, and not to mention their medical history. So the doctor may not be able to make a proper diagnosis. Even when a diagnosis is made, they may not understand well-intentioned reminders from doctors and how medication should be taken, and also the side effects associated. Some say that their family members may be present to serve as interpreters, but we have to understand that they are patients and they're entitled to the privacy. And medical translation is not ordinary translation services. A qualified or the necessary training and education are needed. The government only provides a hotline service. So when an EM member has a problem, he can call up the hotline and seek help. But this is not enough because the service is not immediate and direct. The Civic Party proposes that an on-site translator be provided, and then an EM member with medical training should be employed so that the patient and the doctor can have a better understanding of the medical condition and the diagnosis and treatment. Many EMs do not understand clearly the procedures and method for applying for PRH. Many frontline staff at housing estates don't know how to help them. Some EMs may have the means to afford their own homes, but real estate agencies do not know how to communicate with them or deal with them because of the language barrier. And because of cultural differences, some landlords refuse to rent their flats to EMs. So these are problems faced by EMs. The Civic Party is of the view that the administration should set up training for staff of housing estates and also real estate agencies. Mr. Makkip Singh from the Yunnan District Council. Good afternoon. I am Makkip Singh, and also chairman of the Democratic Front. Well, we have had hundreds of thousands of Nepalese and also our other EM groups living in Yunnan. They were born in Hong Kong, they grew up here, and they are actually Hong Kong people. However, their wives are very often from their home countries, so their wives don't know Cantonese and English, and they have encountered many difficulties. Community support for them on the housing and healthcare fronts are not enough. For instance, for housing, EMs don't know how to fill out the application form for PRH because it is mainly in Chinese. It's hard to find an English version of the application form. And when it comes to income proof, many EMs are construction site workers and casual workers. It's hard for them to find an employer and to declare income. And frequently the application forms are sent back, and this is very unfair. And very often they have to attend clinics of Department of Health. It operates a telephone booking system, and if they want translation service, it has to be booked 3 days in advance. And if the case is urgent, they have to go to an A&E department where there is a translator present. However, the cost is much higher. Instead of $46 per visit to a clinic, they have to pay $100 for an A&E attendance. And when there are medical ward rounds, because there is no translation service, again, they face difficulties. We do not have enough community centers serving EMs. There isn't sufficient publicity, and therefore there should be more publicity. At these centers, there should be more Cantonese training courses and English courses so that they will facilitate their integration into society. And there should be a specialized counter for EMs for PRH housing and for medical and healthcare in NT West and Kowloon and some Shui Po and Tung Chung. Whether it be hospitals and clinics, there should be enhanced interpretation service for them. Ms. Wong Ching Sam. Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon. I'd like to talk about support services centers for EMs. Under the HAD, there are such centers. I'd like to know how HAD publicize the services of these centers. Many EMs do not know that there are such centers in their local community, and they have to travel to another one in another district, or they also need referral by friends. So how is publicity done? Have you publicize such centers to, say, religious readers and also organizations serving EMs. There should be more cooperation so that the information can get across to the EMs. And even for mainstream services, they may come into counter with EMs, but they don't know what services to refer EMs to. So mainstream service providers should also be told of such services so that EMs can have the services they need. And website publicity. There are 7 organizations operating these centers. There are only Cheer, Shine, and Touch providing an option for EM languages. But Touch, yes, there is they may say that there is a page on language of EMs, but the information provided will just include the name of the function involved. There is no details in their own language on what are the content. Many EMs have smartphones. They can browse the internet, but they cannot get the services they want. So on the website, there should be multilingual choices, and details of activities should be presented in languages they understand, and perhaps apps can be developed to facilitate their access to information. There are some governments who don't even know that school has been suspended due to inclement weather. If such information can be provided in apps or in relevant websites, then they can be made aware of important policies, changes, and new information from the government.
So if there are such apps, then that would also facilitate their understanding of what's happening. So I think these would all help. Thank you. Next, from the New People's Party, Ms. Fu Hiu Lam. Well, in Tung Chung, actually we have many EMs other than South Asians who are living in Yetong Estate. We also have many Indians who are living in Tung Chung North. And according to my daily contacts, well, many South Asians do have a lot of need for support from the government. For example, in terms of housing, I've once helped an EM who's over 60, and after he's arrived in Hong Kong, he's been staying with a relative, which is a very small apartment of no more than 600 square feet, and he'll have to stay in the living room all the time, and he has not been able to have a good sleep, and he doesn't know how to apply for public housing. And after a friend's introduction, he got to know me, and then I've been helping him since then. So it shows that a lot of the information has not been made available to EMs, and it's not been sent to them effectively. So in terms of publicity, I'm sure the administration has a lot of room for improvement, so to ensure that EMs will be able to have direct access to such information and know where to go to if they have such need. And in terms of healthcare services, well, when it comes to health or sickness, it doesn't know barriers, and there are many EMs who might be in ill health, but then because of the language problem, they will have to get a relative or friends who can understand Cantonese to accompany them before they can come to get any consultation or treatment. And as a result, there might be problems. And at present, the services provided by hospitals are not adequate. Yes, there might be interpretation services available, but then they will have to book in advance, and it's very complicated. And by the time when they get to the clinic, they would not be able to enjoy such service, and as a result, there is communication barrier, and they might not be able to tell exactly what they are suffering from, and that might also cause delays in the treatment or misdiagnosis. They don't even know how to apply for medical or healthcare assistance or allowances and so on. So a lot of work needs to be done. For example, the efficiency of translation or interpretation services need to be improved. And also that's also one of the problems in integrating into society, other than seeking treatment in terms of applying for jobs and seeking education and so on. They would also be subject to different language barriers. So they've been rather annoyed by this. I have to emphasize that Hong Kong is a metropolitan city, and therefore it's our core value that we should respect diversified culture, and we should also respect different religious and styles of life. And that's also one of the cornerstones in promoting equal opportunities. That's why we suggest that we should set up a commission on diversified culture, and there should be coordination at the policy level so that we'd be able to help the EMs in studying Chinese and then apply for mainstream schools and even apply for civil service jobs and also engage in religious studies and so on, so that women can also be given more support in finding jobs. Sorry, next is Ms. Leung. Yes, Chairman, I've been working with EMs for many years. I'd like to share my experience with you. Well, as a government department, I think the HA has been doing a remarkable job in assisting the EMs. I can give you some statistics. For example, taking 2014 and 15 as an example, the HA has already completed some 7,900 cases. But then as of today, our topic is healthcare services and housing. But then if you look at the DFH, only 55 interpretation cases were provided, and then for the housing department, only 442. So just in the same year, if you make the comparison, you can see that many of the interpretation services were provided by the HA, while the HD and also the DFH have not been doing a good job. So I think the HA has already served as a good model for other departments to learn from. Secondly, on renting premises. Back in 2013, well, the Seng Kong Pui Lady Macleod Ho Center has conducted a survey showing the difficulties encountered by EMs in renting flats. In fact, there are several reasons. First of all, for the EMs, they have extended families, and they're talking about rather large families. For example, for Pakistan, at least they have 3 children. And as a result, in terms of the rent they have to pay, well, that would account for a very high proportion of their income, because very often only the father would be the breadwinner. And also, as we can see, when you ask the EMs whether they have any difficulties, or for example, have they been discriminated in renting flats and so on, well, they might say that no, I don't know. But then for those of us working frontline, when we accompany them, we would understand that when we try to get the agents or the landlords to help them, well, very often they would say that, okay, I'll rent the flat to you. But then once they know that the tenant is going to be an EM, they would say that, sorry, there is another tenant whom I've already agreed with. So these are the situations that we encounter day in, day out. So that's a second problem. Thirdly, for many of the respondents who have been interviewed, because the rents are going up all the time, they have not been able to find premises that are suitable to their needs. That's also one of the problems. That's why we have some suggestions. First, in terms of rent control, the administration should deal with rent control more effectively. It's not just for the EMs, even for locals. Well, for the EMs, they have this added difficulty because they have larger families, and that's why they would not be able to stay in subdivided flats. And also, can there be dedicated translation or interpretation centers whereby more EMs can make use of the interpretation service? And thirdly, well, for the grassroots, well, can they get rent allowance? Well, or will the current assistance be adequate? So that should be reviewed. And last but not least, Chairman, is it possible that for the EM subcommittee, can we extend it until next year? Because there are many topics that should be covered. And also for public hearings, many EMs would also like to speak. We hope that they can be given more such opportunities. All right, thank you.
Ethnic Minority Concern Group, please.
好，唔該你啊，主席。咁咧，今日咧，我想講關於幾個親身啲 case 啦，或者啲個案咁樣啦。
We have several cases to share with you, and the administration is actually thinking about increasing the service charge for E&M service. But then, when they try to increase the fees, it might not be a problem for many. But then, have you ever thought about this? That is at the DFH and also at the Jockey Club Clinic, when they try to make appointments, do they have enough quotas? And if they've been doing a good job, and then it's okay if you increase the fees because you think that many people are abusing the service. But then what if they have difficulty getting an appointment by phone? All right, they might have waited for 3 or 4 days, and in the end they might be forced to go to the the A&E department. So that would put them at loggerheads with the doctors at the hospital, because apparently they've been treated as if they've been abusing the system. But then in reality, they've been having difficulty making appointments by phone, and when they try to make appointments by phone, well, many elders and also women, they simply do not understand Cantonese, and therefore they won't be able to get the chip. All right, you say that you have interpretation service. Only when they see the doctor will they be able to enjoy the service. But then how can they get the service on the phone? So have you thought about this? Well, is it that they are not able to make an appointment by phone? That's why you're saying that they have been abusing the A&E service, and therefore they should be subject to the fee increase. Well, and actually Paul also asked us during one of the meetings with us, well, why is it that at the HD we have not been using the interpretation service very actively? Well, when I went back to ask the residents why so few of them are using the service, in fact, at the DFH, well, at the housing department, actually many of the services have been outsourced to private contractors and for the security companies, and also when we go there, well, because their English is not that proficient, and probably they are not able to hire more educated people, so they'll just give us the forms, and then they say that we can't help you. You can see if you can get friends to help you. For example, for those who are already tenants, well, during the 10-year survey, how can they do it? Because they don't understand Cantonese, and they are not able to get anybody to help. So when you consider outsourcing the service, have you ever considered the problems encountered by the EMs? For example, for the education standard. Well, when you try to introduce mother tongue education, have you thought about the EMs? They would be sacrificed. Well, in providing the service, you would just think about the mainstream need, how you can save money. Well, that would be all you would be thinking. But what about the EMs? They don't have any say. And when they don't have any say, then they would be left to suffer. All right, after today's public hearing, will anybody be following up on this? Probably after a year, you might be thinking about this. You might be trying to do something about it. I hope that something more can be done about it.
我想講呢，啱啱頭先就呢位朋友都
Well, thank you. I think much has been said by the representative just now. Well, the administration might have said that a lot has been spent on the EMs, and even for the CE elect, she's been saying that tens of millions of dollars have been spent on EMs, and special policies have been put in place for the EMs. But then where has the money been spent? Well, as the EMs, we can't see how the money has been spent. We don't know where the money has gone to. Well, probably they might have used the money to give out free tickets for Ocean Park and so on. Would that be enough? Would that be able to help the EMs to integrate into society? Would they be able to study Chinese more effectively? Would they be able to find jobs and so on? But no. So has that been used in an effective way? Well, I can't see that. Well, it's been 20 years since the reunification, but then for many EMs, they were born and bred locally. How come many EMs are still not able to study Chinese at school, and they are not able to find jobs after graduation? So what's the problem? So has that got to do with government policy, and what has the government been doing? Is it that they are treating these EMs as if well, they should be left to their own wits? So apparently during the past 10-20 years, we've been left as if we were orphans. We have not been dealt with. We have not been taken care of. What's most laughable is that, in particular, well, for the CE elect, Mrs. Carrie Lam, initially, when she was still the Chief Secretary for Administration, she said that for the advisory committee, well, I understand that well, political parties would be represented, and they might also make nominations for people to be co-opted into those advisory bodies. Well, that's fine. But then apparently the latest trend is that the administration would say that you will have to get the richest and the most powerful ones. In particular, they have to befriend the CE elect first. And then those will they will be the job will be outsourced to them, and then they will do the selection, and they will shortlist, and they will nominate nominees to the HAD, and then the HAD would say, oh, all right, this guy has been nominated by Carrie Lam, and then they would try to get the rich and powerful people so that they would be co-opted into these advisory committees. They would have at most 1 or 2 meetings a year. We don't know what they've been doing. We don't know what policies have been made by these advisory bodies. We don't know. So what's the purpose of setting up these advisory bodies in the first place? Do they really want to listen to the community? Do they really want to tap the pulse of the community? No, I don't find this. So I find it very disappointing. Sorry. Next, we have Ms. Lo Lam from the HKCSS. Yes, I'd also like to respond to Mr. Khan, who just spoke. In fact, there's been many advisory bodies have not had a meeting for a year. We have 2 advisory committees. One is called the EM Forum, and another one is on racial harmony. This is a forum. They should have 2 meetings a year. But then in 2016, after the since early 2016, there has not been any meeting scheduled, and we've written to the HAD, and yet no meeting has been scheduled. I hope that they can restart the conversation or the dialogue. I'd also like to respond to the policies. Since 2009, we have the Racial Discrimination Ordinance, and of course that was passed unconditioned. For example, there would be some exemptions. And the administration also said that there would be administrative guidelines to promote racial harmony, hoping that that would also make up for the shortfall of the Racial Discrimination Ordinance. All right. Up to now, some 23 departments said that they would follow the guidelines. That was introduced in 2010, but then it's done on a voluntary basis. It's not compulsory, and there's also no supervision or monitoring mechanism. There is no review whatsoever. So under the administrative guidelines, there are several conditions which have not been followed by some departments. For example, on a regular basis, they should be collecting the number of times where such services were enjoyed by EM, and also a continuous dialogue with the EMs, and also improvement measures. On these 3 points, many departments simply have not followed. For example, the housing department or healthcare or the social or the SWD, when you ask them for the figures, they have not been able to provide them.
And such as regular reviews and monitoring. And we do not see any thing being done by CMAB. They are not monitoring whether these 23 departments have acted according to the administrative guidelines. We have had a few meetings under the subcommittee, and all departments claimed that they have followed the guidelines, whether it be the HD, the ED, SWD, so on and so forth. But is it really a fact? And we don't know whether there's been any review. We've asked for statistics, but they are not available. Interpretation service is very important to EMs. When they need public services, they encounter difficulties associated with language. We should develop a professional interpretation system, because there is no proper training and accreditation. So the government should take the lead rather than for the NGOs to do it, because the latter do not have the professionalism and resources. The government should learn what Australia and other countries are doing. They should have a more systematic and professional interpretation service system for the YAMs. We have Ms. Pat An Ping from the Catholic Center serving the labor sector. The HD has provided an information paper on housing issues of ethnic minorities. Has claimed that they have employed hall attendants at their housing resource center, and then Mrs. Kwok from the HD told us that they were not security services, but you have to clarify with your contractors whether they are employing hall attendants or security guards. Because how much are they paying for a hall attendant that can receive EMs and provide services to them? Many security officers are doing this job, and they are severely underpaid. If you stress that they are not security guards, then they should be properly remunerated, although they are providing simple interpretation service. But for many EM job candidates, after they have been waiting for a few hours, finally they get to meet the HD staff. They have to wait for a few hours before interpretation service is available. If at the point of getting a slot or getting a booking slip, services can be provided, that can spare them a few hours. And if all service counter can offer interpretation service for them, that is much better. There is no user-friendly interpretation service system for EMs, as said by Ms. Low. And existing interpretation service, while it is available, there aren't sufficient guidelines for staff to understand when such a service is warranted. A staff member may feel that because the EM can speak some broken Cantonese, that is sufficient. Well, a member of a EM will share his or her experience with you later, and there should be guidelines for the staff to assess under what circumstances is interpretation service warranted for a EM. And even if the EM declines such a service, there is still a series of questions to double check. For instance, has he misunderstood the nature of the service, and on what basis has he declined such a service, so as to let the frontline employee understand very well under what circumstances should interpretation service be provided for the EM. Thank you, Ms. Butt. Mr. Lee Ka-shu, Catholic Service Center for Workers. I am a frontline worker, but I'm quite worried when I read the agenda item for this meeting. Difficulties in gaining access to housing and healthcare services and views on support service centers. We are worried, why should we include 3 topics in one item? And they're worried that perhaps the subcommittee may be dissolved very soon. In fact, because of the nature of the agenda item, what we say here may not be focused enough. So can we have a separate meeting on individual items? One of the submissions is on table on provision of interpretation services. Interesting for the Labour Department. They like to say that EMs can bring along the family members. They all can communicate. There is no need to provide any interpretation service. However, the requirement for interpretation service has been increasing from 126 to 221 and 311 year on year. So, and also like to stress that these figures are much bloated, because we've received many complaints that job applicants are not received at Labour Department. There is no one to meet them, and when they see that everything is in Chinese, they just go away. And the staff from LD may say, well, you know English, I won't arrange interpretation for you. Well, even if the EM knows English, you have to ascertain how much he knows and whether he thinks that interpretation is necessary for him. And what's wrong with the support service centers for EM run by the HAD? Now, what is the most pressing need of EMs? EMs tell us that they want HAD staff to help them to fill out forms so that they can apply for food from food bank, for instance, and so forth. But they cannot get the service they need, and they've come back to us, and we are not subsidized by the government. And these centers are publicly funded, and you're not doing enough. And for NGOs like us, we are not spending any public resources. It is unfair for us to take all these cases. Neither is it fair to the community. And for interpretation service, for EMs, if they don't know English, then they cannot have any access at housing estates.
Program Officer. Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you, Chairman. Actually, because I just want to talk about the public housing and then the private housing issues in this meeting. Because as Kashu already mentioned that the time is not enough and we cannot talk about every department in this very short meeting. So recently, Housing Authority changed their policy about big families, that they are allocating 2 flats to them in order to decrease the waiting time for them. But have they thought of the double expenses that will be borne by the tenant? Because you know that I tried to compare the expenses of 2 families. One family who also have 9 members, but they are living in 1 flat. The other family also have 9 members, but they were allocated 2 flats. When I compare the rent, the family living in 1 flat, they are paying 4,300, but the other, those who are having 2 flats, they need to pay 5,600 a month. So you can easily see that 5,600 is a very big amount for them. And then about the utilities, they need to pay the double utility charges, double CLP bills, water bills, and also the gas bills. But I think when the Housing Authority make this policy, they didn't compare these things, that what they are going to do. And then I think I will not talk about that how long actually the applicants need to wait for public housing. I want to talk about the estate office issues. Personally, I am also living in a public estate, and in my estate office there is no one to speak English. I can speak English, but I always have problem to talk to them. Whenever I call them, they cannot communicate with them. If I try to go to the estate office, there is no one to talk to me. Their English is really very low. They can just simply communicate with them, and the result is that I always need to ask my brother who can speak some Cantonese to help me to call them and help me to do if I have some repairing in my home or I have other issues. So actually when we are allocated a flat and we need to go to estate office, there are many things that need to be done, like signing the contract, and there are many documents that they ask us to sign, but no interpretation is provided there for those who cannot speak any English and Chinese. Even you can speak English, I have told you that it is really difficult to understand all those documents, and they will just ask us to sign and without explaining that what documents we are going to sign. And actually recently I read a information note that was prepared by a Legislative Council Secretariat. It mentioned that there are interpretation services provided in Thin Moon North Estate and also Thin Youth Estate Tenancy Management Office. But actually I just want to ask that why they provide interpretation service in only those 2 management offices. Why not they provide in all offices under HA department? I think I have so many things to say, but I don't have enough time.
Give you more time later on. Thank you, Mrs. Abbas. Can we now invite Mrs. Chandra Kala Gurung of the Equal Accessibility Group, please? She's going to be helped by the interpreter, right?
Yeah, she's going to be speaking in Nepali and then I'll translate for her.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello? My name is Gurung Chandrakala.
My name is Gurung Chandrakala.
मेरो बाबा चाहिँ यहाँको पहिला soldier man.
My father used to serve in the British Army in Hong Kong before.
म यहीँ जन्मेको.
I was born in Hong Kong.
धेरै वर्ष भयो यहाँ बसेको.
And I've been living in Hong Kong for many years.
र मलाई भर्खरै 3 वर्ष जति भयो मैले यो कुरा थाहा पाएको, नत्र त मलाई त्यति साह्रो बाहिर म त्यति नगएको र म त्यति साह्रो मलाई उयो थाहा पनि नभएको। मेरो बुढा एक्सिडेन्ट हुँदाखेरि, काममा एक्सिडेन्ट हुँदाखेरि एक्सिडेन्ट हुँदाखेरि मैले धेरै दुःख पाएँ।
As I don't really go out and then I'm not really that much integrated to the Hong Kong Chinese local people, so I did not know many things about the rules and regulations of Hong Kong. And then recently, I think it's around 3 years ago, when my husband, he was in accident at his work, and then I had to go through many difficulties. I suffered a lot.
मलाई थाहा थिएन कि कसरी कुरा गर्ने भनेर, तर मलाई थाहा नभएपछि धेरै कुराहरू काम बिग्रियो, मेरो बुढाको रिपोर्टहरू पनि बिग्रियो। त्यहाँ पछि मैले साथीबाट कन्ट्याक्ट गरेर म क्याथरिङ सेन्टरमा गएँ।
So because of that, because of the lack of the information and then lack of the language barrier, I was not able to go through the process which was required for my husband to get the compensation or damages or whatever it was. And I don't have the legal knowledge and I don't have the sufficient knowledge as where to approach and as to whom ask. And that's why I was not able to get the proper treatment from the public service provider, and that's why my husband's hospital reports, they were altered. And we were not able to get any kind of damages or any kind of facilities he was supposed to receive as the person who was injured during his work. And recently I got to know about the Catholic Center through my friend, and then I went there to seek help.
उहाँले भनेर म इन्टरप्रेटर बुकिङ गर्नु थालेँ, उहाँले सिकाएर।
And the lady in the Catholic Center, she taught me how to book the interpreter.
अनि त्यहाँदेखिको चाहिँ इन्टरप्रेटर मेरो बुढाको फोटोहरू हेरेर मेरो बुढालाई ट्रिटमेन्ट कसरी गर्ने भनेर चाहिँ अनि इन्टरप्रेटर भएपछि चाहिँ त्यहाँदेखिको चाहिँ मलाई सजिलो भयो।
And then after I got to know that I could book the interpreter and I could seek the help which is provided by the HADR or any government bodies, after that I was able to get some help. And then
Right. I'll give you extra time if you need to, just to make up for the time required for the interpretation.
Yeah, I would like to speak a bit longer.
Please go ahead, please.
त्यस्तो कुराहरू त धेरै छ है।
There are many things I really want to talk about.
तर मैले यसपालि चाहिँ म 2013 देखिको अहिलेसम्म मैले धेरै नै स्ट्रगल गरेँ।
Since 2013, I have been suffering a lot.
13 हैन 14 सरी।
Sorry, it was 2014.
अहिलेसम्म मैले के अरे सर्भाइभ गरिरहेछु। मैले धेरै नै दुःख पाएँ, अनि त्यो भएपछि चाहिँ मलाई चाहिँ यहाँनिर त्यही भाषाको प्रब्लम, अनि कोठाको भाडा तिर्नुलाई अब हामीलाई धेरै एक्सपेन्सिभ हुन्छ, पैसा धेरै तिर्नुपर्छ र अनि हस्पिटलमा चार्जहरू धेरै लाग्छ, अनि कुनै पनि हामीलाई सपोर्ट छैन।
So as I told you guys that my husband suffered injury while he was working, and after that I've been going through a lot because the rent is really high in Hong Kong, and then besides that as I cannot really communicate in Cantonese and English, I have got the language barrier, and besides that I cannot access to many information and then the services provided by the government, and besides that the hospital fees are also quite high, and that's why I'm going through a lot, but still I'm just managing to survive.
एउटा कुरा थियो के रे, एकपल्ट मेरो बुढा हस्पिटलबाट आयो, अनि त्यहाँदेखिको पछि फेरि घरमा लडेर हस्पिटल लिएर गएको थियो। त्यो टाइममा रातभरि राखिदियो हामीलाई भाषा नजान्ने भएपछि।
After my husband suffered injury at his work, and when he was back to home, even after that incident, there was an incident when he really got sick and we had to take him to the hospital. But because we could not really communicate, and that's why the hospital made us wait for the whole night.
हामीलाई भाषाको प्रब्लम भएर नै त्यसरी हामी रातभरि पर्खेर बस्नुपर्ने हुन्छ
Because we could not communicate and there was problem communicating in the proper language, and then we had to wait the whole night. We didn't have anything, we could not help ourselves.
अनि बिरामी धेरै छटपटेर बसिरहेको हुन्छ कति
And my husband, he was in pain.
अनि कतिपल्ट गएर भने पनि हामीलाई
And I went to the staff and I requested them many times.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I may have to stop you there. I'll give you more time later on, okay?
पर्खी मात्रै भन्छ जहिले पनि
They only asked me to just wait.
अनि
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Gurung. We now invite Ms. Jan Musrat of the Equal Access Group Call. The lady.
मुसरत जान आप कुछ बताना चाहती हैं?
Once again, we have IT service for her as well in Urdu.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम.
मेरा नाम मुसरत है
My name is मुसरत.
जी मेरा आने का बहुत शुक्रिया तुम लोगों ने मुझे टाइम दिया मैं यहाँ आई हूँ
I am very thankful to you that you invited me and you gave me time.
जी मेरे हांगकांग में आने में 7 साल हो गए
I have been in Hong Kong since
Can you speak up a little bit, please? We can't hear.
I have been in Hong Kong for 7 years.
Uh-huh.
जी मैं हांगकांग में बहुत मुश्किलात है मकान की घर के किराए के मकान की बहुत मुश्किलात है
There are many difficulties in Hong Kong like renting a house.
बहुत ज़्यादा किराए हम लोग 5 लोग हैं
We are 5 family members.
जी मेरे बच्चे पढ़ते हैं
My children are studying.
जी मेरा शोहर दो नौकरी करते हैं
My husband is doing 2 jobs.
तो घर का किराया भी बहुत है
The house rent is too much.
जी मेरा बड़ा बेटा यूनिवर्सिटी में पढ़ रहा है
My elder son is studying in university.
जी जिस वक्त स्कूल में था तो उस वक्त भी रात को नौकरी करता था
When he was in school, even he was working.
क्यों हमारा घर का किराया बहुत 11,000 हमारा घर के किराया है हमारा खर्चा पूरा नहीं हो सकता है
Because our house rent is 11,000 and due to this we cannot have money for other things.
जी तो मुझे बहुत फिक्र है बच्चों की पढ़ाई की बारे क्या करे जो कहें बच्चा रात की नौकरी करता है
I am very concerned about the education of my children because my son is working during night.
तो इसकी वजह से हमारा जो घर का पता है ना 11,000 किराया है तो जी तो इस वजह से तो क्या नहीं हमें 5 लोग थे हम 6 सालों का हम घर के अपना गवर्नमेंट के घर का किया था अप्लाई किया था
Because I mentioned that our house rent is 11,000 and we are 5 family members, and I have applied for the public. We have applied for the public housing since 6 years before.
जी तो मैं उधर गई थी अपना में से लुकफू में गई थी तो बोलते भाई तुम एक बेटे से निकाल दो तो जल्दी घर मिल जाएगा
I went to the Lukfu office and they said that you delete the name of your elder son from the application and you will get the house much sooner.
तो मैंने बड़े बेटों को निकाल दिया हम लोग 4 लोग हैं तभी भी बहुत इंतजार करा अभी भी उन लोगों ने घर कोई नहीं दिया
I removed the name of my elder son but still and now we are 4 family members but still we are waiting for a long time and we didn't allocate it to a house.
जी बहुत मुश्किलात है ज़ुबान आने की वजह से बहुत मुश्किलात है ज़ुबान का बंदा लुकफू में कोई किसी जगह में भी भाई गवर्नमेंट में डिपार्टमेंट जो जगह है उसमें बंदा रखे बात करने का
And due to the language barrier it is very difficult to communicate to them and I suggest that they should hire someone who can fluently communicate in our language and can tell our needs fluently to the housing staff.
जी ज़ुबान ना होने की वजह से बहुत मुश्किलात हैं तो क्या नहीं क्यों मैं डॉक्टर के पास जाती हूँ या किधर जाती हूँ मैं हर दफ़ा बच्चों को लेकर नहीं जा सकती
And due to the language barrier it is very difficult to access different services like if I need to take my children to the doctor it is difficult for me.
तो क्यों तो क्या नहीं बच्चों को बार-बार छुट्टी करनी पड़ती है तो बहुत उन लोगों बच्चों के लिए बहुत मुश्किल है
And because sometimes I need to ask my son to accompany me to do the interpretation but it is difficult for him to get leave from the university.
जी बहुत प्रॉब्लम है इसके अपना क्या नाम अस्पताल भी की बहुत क्या नहीं परेशानी है ज़ुबान ना आने की वजह से और जो लुकफू में जाते हैं हम लोग किसी भी गवर्नमेंट डिपार्टमेंट में जाते हैं तो बस जुबान का मसला है, जुबान ना आने की वजह से हमारे लोग
And due to the language barrier, it is difficult to access different services in hospitals and in Lukfu office and in other departments.
तो
You need more time or you
आपको और टाइम चाहिए?
अच्छा, गवर्नमेंट के बहुत इंतज़ार करना पड़ता है, क्या करे बंदा, नहीं किराए बहुत हैं, हम लोग अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकते, बहुत ज़्यादा मुश्किलात है बोलने में, और मदद यही चाहिए, ये बस गवर्नमेंट के कोई भी इदारा उसमें जाके नहीं सहूलत चाहिए इसी ज़ुबान की.
And we need to wait for a long time for accessing different public services. So I just want help in these matters.
बहुत शुक्रिया.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Mrs. Masrat.
Yeah.
Can we now invite Mrs. Shaheen Sabana of the Equal Access Group, please?
Thank you so much. I am Shabana from Equal Access Group. Today I want to share the difficulties living in private housing and then applying public housing. I applied public housing in 2009 for the first time, but very soon all the documents were sent back to me because some documents were missing. I submitted the documents again according to what I thought through my limited understanding for English, but it returned again, and then it started to happen for several times, and I was not able to complete the application till I meet Catholic Worker Center staff at the end of the 2013. And with their help, I applied successfully in 2014. During this process, I tried to approach a housing authority customer service center, Lukfu, 5 to 6 times, but because of language barrier, I could not communicate with the staff there. No one offered me any kind of interpretation or translation services. My 4 years were wasted, and no one took the responsibility of this loss. I am not the only case. Many families with language barrier will suffer from same situation. After so many years, its situation does not change. Still, people face difficulties for PRH application, like in form filling and completing the procedure. No help or support is offered. Application procedure, form and required documents, everything is quite complicated. I am a single mother now living in private housing with very poor condition. Actually, I am living in with mice and insect. Now, because I cannot afford a better place with high rent, landlord will not help me in repairing anything. Contract is in Chinese, landlord speak in Chinese, very difficult to communicate with him. I always need to speak help from Catholic Center workers to contact with landlord, and finding a new flats in another headache for us. So-called support centers and service centers for ethnic minorities will not offer any help in any issues or problems we suffer. I want to request government to provide interpretation service proactively in all documents. Support service centers should give clear guidelines for providing really support service for ethnic minority. Housing department should provide enough support for every applicant to go through the whole procedure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabana. We now invite Mr. Mohammed Mahmood, please.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Yeah, I have problem to housing department. I am living in Hong Kong 20 years already, and then I applied the 5 years before. The points are okay, 5 years already apply, and then this year I have my interview, January, and then I go interview and then give the document, everything document only officer say, officer take the document, only 5 minutes, no interview, anything, asking what you do, like the anything, only 5 minutes, tell me the okay, go. 5 मिनट में उसने मुझे फार कर दिया. इंटरव्यू शुरू में बता देता हूँ. आई गो टू, मैं गया था लोकफू में इंटरव्यू था मेरा. तो उधर मैंने डॉक्यूमेंट दिए, सब डॉक्यूमेंट देने के बाद उसने 5 मिनट में मुझे कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं किया, कोई सवाल नहीं उसने मुझसे पूछा.
I submitted all the documents, but within 5 minutes he didn't ask me any questions and he asked me to go back.
And then इसके बाद मुझे बोला उसने आपको लेटर लिख के आपको इत्तला कर देंगे.
And he said that and we will send you a letter and inform you.
And then after इसके 3 दिन बाद उसने मुझे लेटर लिखा, उसने बोला आपका केस रिजेक्ट कैंसिल हो गया.
And he sent me letter after 3 days and he said that your case is rejected, cancelled.
Then I go to health center also, and सेंटर में गया. उसके बाद उनसे मदद ली मैंने, उनसे लेटर लिखा और फिर केस ओपन कराया फिर दोबारा.
I go to the sports center and I ask their help and then they help me to reopen my case.
इसके बाद मैं फिर लोफू में इंटरव्यू देने गया 5 मार्च को, 5 अप्रैल को मैं गया उधर. उसने उस वक्त मेरे पास साथ था, इंटरप्रेटर भी साथ था.
And I went to the Lukfu office for the interview on 5th of April and in this time I was accompanied by the interpreter.
इसके बाद आधा घंटा मेरे उससे बात हुई. उसने मुझे बोला आपकी सैलरी बहुत ज़्यादा है, थोड़ी ज़्यादा है, इसलिए आपका केस जो है वो भी.
And he talked to me for half an hour, but he said that your salary is over the limit.
Over the limit, but I say my salary only. I tell my salary is I have 17,000. 17,000 है मेरी salary total.
My salary is 17,000.
Basic per month.
Per month.
तो जो इसमें मैं काम करता हूँ only 20 दिन.
But it is for the entire month, and my actual wages is according to day by day basis, and I work around 20 days for a month.
But फिर भी उन्होंने मेरा कैंसिल कर दिया.
And if my salary is calculated based on 20 days, it is below the limit. But even after that, they didn't accept this, and they rejected my case.
6 महीने की सैलरी है वो अंडर लिमिट है.
And if you see my 6 month salary, it is not exceeding the required limit.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mahmood. Can we now invite Mr. Main Thapa of the Nepalese Social Service, Hong Kong?
It's okay. Use the mic.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you for Hong Kong government, because in the Asia, this is I think the Hong Kong government is inviting our EM people to making the conference like this. And I think due to time, I will talk only few points. Actually, I have attended many meetings, many conferences here, but I don't see any community leaders, actual community leaders, those who are working in their own community. Just I am looking only NGOs and INGOs. So if you have time, just send me the email how many community organizations or leaders we have invited. Thank you. And about the housing, I will talk in overall housing. It will be much better some quota system for the EM people it will be much better if you can make housing department make some quota system for EM. And about the healthcare, it will be much better some general doctors hired from overseas or from our own nationalities, because some countries like Canada, Australia and America, they have employed many doctors from our country. So it will be much better. And about the supported services, actually I am working here in Hong Kong nearly 20 years. Especially I don't talk to any other community, but I am talking about my community. I think it is very difficult to measure how our community is improved from the provided services from the other INGOs. So it will be much better either together coordinate with the INGOs and our own community organizations, or directly provided some funding to make the activity to the directly our community organizations. It will be much better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Thapa. 跟住我哋有關注婦。
Next, with Ms. Pt1 from the Concern Group for Sex Violence Against Women. Thank you. There are 2 hours in this meeting, and all deputations have views on issues surrounding EMs. So this meeting is not too short. I hope the term of this subcommittee can be extended for at least 3 months, so that you can see through the legislation of the enactment of several pieces of legislation. And you have not discussed women services for the women as well. Because of time limitation, I'll raise 2 points. First, how EMs in Hong Kong know of services available to them. Many clients don't know that there are dedicated service units for them. Our clients are women, they don't know English, and they rarely meet people beyond their families. So the HAB have people to send out pamphlets at the airport as well as in the community. We hope that the guidelines can be issued to the Immigration Department, which will be accessible to all EMs, because when they arrive, they will go to ID for various services. So if the pamphlets and service guidelines are sent to the Immigration Department, then everyone will have access to them. And interpretation, I'd like to talk about a general issue first. We've seen improvements in the past few years, but for frontline staff of the department, they may not know how such services should be provided to EMs. So when they face EM applicants or people coming for assistance, they are not aware of the existence of such interpretation service. The government claims that they do not have enough interpreters for EMs. If the government is not prepared to spend resources on training and accreditation, you will never have enough talents. Interpretation for EMs should be remunerated and accredited on a par with interpreters for English and Chinese. And the EM population is rising, so there will be a greater demand for interpretation service. So there must be a thorough review of this issue. We should not just ask the HD or the HAD to deal with this in a piecemeal manner. I don't really have time to touch on all issues faced by EM women. For instance, sex violence they face. I hope there can be another meeting to discuss EM issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure of having this opportunity to talk about the difficulties that the ethnic minorities encounter in Hong Kong. I can speak in volumes about their difficulties, but I grabbed this opportunity and straight away hit on the key element, that is the language barrier, which is the root cause for all the troubles shooting out. Language is one of the most important components in building up human relationships. So, coming to the point, the EM have been victimized in all aspects, be it job, housing, hospitals. When they apply for housing, they are waitlisted for years together. In hospitals, even if one attempts to speak in Cantonese, the nursing staff will not understand our accents, and therefore one feels discouraged and let go of the matter. Some families even have difficulty finding accommodations. Real estate agents discriminate against them by simply ignoring the request after looking at their race. They may as well assume that they are financially incapable to pay the rent, and my family is definitely one who's facing this. Many NGOs have addressed these issues through a wide range of work, such as legal advocacy, various community projects, and with minority groups and public education. However, it takes time, and I understand that Rome was not built in a day. It is appreciable that there are many support service centers for EM who are working hard to cover up these key issues, such as holding various activities and educational talks to their likes and for their concerns. It is my personal suggestion that honestly speaking Cantonese is very difficult for a non-Chinese to speak. As against English language, even after taking lessons, it is very difficult to cope up with this language and speak like any other local Chinese, unless we are born here. Whereas English language is so easy, even an uneducated person can make an attempt and manage in his daily life. The best solution would be, since the EM are struggling in all aspects, it would be much better if the local Chinese, namely lower middle class, joins hand with the EM and learn English language too, which would benefit the society. Hong Kong is a city with a predominantly Chinese population, but people from every ethnicity also live here, and the government should represent them all right. And I also understand that we are only a couple of thousands, and the government has to take care of millions. But every single drop helps make up the ocean. Lastly, I would say involve all, not isolate them. Only then we can have a happy, peaceful, and successful society to live with peace and dignity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. 跟住我哋有請評論基委員會嘅何永強先生，唔該。
Thank you, Mr. Ho Wing Kang from EOC. Thank you. Deputations have spoken at length on problems encountered by EMs in areas of housing, healthcare services, and so forth. And we have prepared 3 papers for this, and we have some suggestions. Now, for housing, when it comes to application of PRH and also sitting tenants, well, interpretation service should be provided on a proactive basis, and this should include housing estate management staff. And for real estate agents and landlords, they may be discriminatory in providing apartments for lease, and they should be educated, and the government should enhance public education. And we should also simplify the booking system for making appointments. There should be dedicated officers at hospitals to facilitate EMs and to help to make it easier for nursing or healthcare staff. There should be comprehensive training and education for staff. There should be on-site interpreters at hospitals so as to make up for the shortfall in service. And for the support service center for EM, we must provide more resources for them to boost their interpretation service in particular so that there can be quality interpretation services. Government departments and bureaus should be told clearly that they should serve EMs as well, and the relevant duties should not be shifted to support service centers only. And there are 3 extra recommendations other than those already in my written submission. Now, training should not just cover some part of the frontline staff, but to include managerial staff as well. And in provision of service to EMs, there should be guidelines and policies and procedures, checklists, and there should be clear indicators, and there should be a monitoring system so that we'll not be told that there aren't statistics collected or detailed information to reflect the situation. Lastly, there must be a change in mindset. More EMs should be able to work in government departments of public bodies, so there can be a change in mindset and not just a provision of hardware and training. Please, can the staff help?
Let's
take a short break of 5 minutes. Secretariat, please see whether help is needed.